All right, we are going to go ahead and get started. Good morning, welcome. Thanks to all of you for joining us this morning. Really excited to have you tuning in to the latest segment in our ongoing series of Friday morning gatherings as we highlight innovative education leaders, cutting edge education ideas from all across the state and across the country. And really in the spirit of SCORE's commitment in our mission that we seek to catalyze innovative change, and in alignment with our core values as an organization, that many of the most difficult challenges in education can be solved through creative and innovative solutions. We want to highlight innovators, entrepreneurs, and leaders from all across our state and across the country who are leading the way. So our goal each time we get together is to pick a single topic, a single cutting edge idea, and to dive deep, to quickly learn more, to hear from entrepreneurs and innovators, and hopefully to trigger some thoughts or ideas that you can take away and apply in your own daily work. I know how busy everyone is, so our goal is to keep these sessions brief and informal. But I will say we'll be taking questions throughout the conversation today, so feel free to just add any questions that you may have into the chat as we go, and we'll get to as many as we can before the end of our time together this morning. So this morning, I'm really excited to welcome Dr. Dan Challener and Dr. Michelle Caldwell from Chattanooga's Public Education Foundation, PEF. Dan and Michelle are doing some incredible and innovative work to prepare even more Hamilton County students for college and career success. And I particularly want to sort of highlight and share the work PEF is doing with an innovative app called DegreeU. That really focuses on supporting students with and through the college search process, helping students find the college that best fits their needs and then helps them apply, get accepted, and enroll. As we know, a good college match can greatly increase the likelihood of students excelling academically and excelling personally, which not only help increase student retention in post-secondary education, but ultimately in helping more students in completing a post-secondary degree or credential. So let me quickly introduce Dan and Michelle, and then we'll get right to the conversation. Dr. Dan Challener serves as president in PEF. He is responsible for the overall direction and programs of the foundation. And PEF right now is focusing its people and its funds in four major areas: college and career success, teacher preparation, leadership development, and professional development of teachers. Dan is a longtime SCORE partner, advisor, and friend. And before coming to Chattanooga, Dan served for 8 years as the CEO of Providence Blueprint for Education, a community-based organization focused on improving public schools in Providence, Rhode Island. Dr. Michelle Caldwell is the director of college and career success at PEF. Michelle has more than 15 years of experience in higher education and began her career at Dalton State College, where she served as the academic support services coordinator and as an adjunct instructor before moving to MTSU, where she served as assistant director of the Office of Institutional Diversity and coordinated a successful program designed to increase retention and graduation rates for minority students at MTSU. So please join me in welcoming Dr. Dan Challener and Dr. Michelle Caldwell. And Dan, maybe I'll turn it over to you first and ask you and Michelle maybe to start with an overview of the important work you're doing, maybe talk a little bit about the DegreeU app you're deploying, and maybe some of the other programs and initiatives that you have in place to help prepare more students for college and career. And then we'll turn to questions after that. So Dan and Michelle, I'll turn it over to you.
Hey, thanks, David. Michelle and I are really happy to be here. As you mentioned, I've been involved with SCORE for a very, very long time, since I think its beginnings in 2009. I've participated in a lot of different convenings and meetings and reports, and with everyone, I've learned something. And so we're really excited to be here today because we know we're going to learn something today, and really appreciate the opportunity to share the work and get great questions from folks who are listening. You mentioned what the PEF does, a couple of things, but the thing that we want to talk to you about today is our work with college access and especially college success. In the spirit of Friday Focus, we want to share two innovations that we've been working on. But the innovations, we believe, we are already starting to increase the number of students who complete a college, a 2-year or a 4-year or a TCAT certificate. But before we get to those two innovations, we wanted just to give a little bit of history, just to explain the why of what we're doing with these two innovations. So, as you mentioned, David, Public Education Foundation has been working on increasing college attainment for more than 25 years. One of our first efforts began in 1999. It's called Camp College, and it continues to thrive to this very day. It's a 3-day residential summer program at the University of the South, Sewanee. And every year, about 100 students, 100 rising high school seniors who want to be the first in their family to go to college, participate in Camp College. It's run by our team and a group of about 20 college admissions officers from across the Southeast. The students learn a whole bunch of different things: how to identify a best fit college, how to prepare a strong application, how to secure the financial aid that they'll need to go to college. And they work in small groups with those admissions officers, who are an incredible group of people, some of whom have been involved for 20 years. They volunteer their time. My favorite activity is the advisors and the counselors give the students some actual applications. The names are redacted, of course, but the students have to review them and decide what makes a good application and who they would admit if they were admissions officer. And the experience really prepares a group of students to be successful in the college application process. Like everything we do at PEF, we measure it. Now that we've been doing this for over 20 years, way over 1,000 students have gone through. Virtually 100% of the students who go through it apply to college or admitted to college. We looked really closely the last decade of data, and over 95% of those students come back, matriculate, so there's virtually no summer melt. And over 95% of the kids who go come back for a second year. So really extraordinary retention, and north now of 75% completed degree within 6 years, which is way, way, way above the national average for Pell eligible students, which our students virtually all are. And it's something, it's a very low cost intervention, and something that's really made a difference in our community. I think any community could do. But one of the things we learned, sort of to tell this story, one of the things we learned from Camp College was how important good advising is, how impactful. So in 2004, we began privately funding a college advisor in every Hamilton County high school, a trained professional. And even perhaps even as important as the person was, we also provided professional development, monthly professional development. All of these college advisors and the lead high school counselor, the lead school counselor from each of the Hamilton County high schools would meet at PEF. They'd learn together. They'd share best practices, what was working. They'd solve problems. So you have this group that's still meeting to this day. Go back, not quite to that slide yet. We'll go back. Thanks. And then we also created a relationship with the National Student Clearinghouse and the Hamilton County Schools so that we could track the impact of this intervention. And so we've tracked since 2004 what's happened to our high school graduates, which went to college, how many went to college, how many went through a full year and came back, and how many graduated. And that's created an incredible database. And we've shared the data with the college advisors, with the lead counselors, with the schools, and they see patterns and they can identify best practices and they see which colleges serve our students well. It's allowed them to close gaps. We've made significant progress in closing the gap between Black and white students going to college, for example. And overall, the intervention of the advisors, the professional development, and the data, we've seen a huge increase in the number of students from Hamilton County who go to college. Matriculation, just to throw some numbers that are almost they're precise. We're really careful with the data. In 2005, the first year we have full set of data, 58% of the students in Hamilton County went to college that fall. Most recent year we have data, 2020, 71%. So a 13% gain. Those are percentages. I think more importantly, in terms of kids, 1,324 versus 1,883, 500 more kids in a school district that has not grown in size. It's about more kids going to college. Again, an intervention that costs some money, but I just call out to everybody, the new funding formula makes possible more counselors, more advisors, and really want communities. It's made a huge difference. But in our community, one of the things that we saw was we're really happy with more kids going, but what we saw was the completion rate wasn't what we wanted it to be, and especially wasn't what we wanted it to be in the high schools that have the greatest challenges, the highest levels of poverty, the neighborhoods with the greatest challenges. And so that's where my friend and colleague, Dr. Michelle Caldwell, in 2018, really 2019, just as COVID was starting, Michelle started some really important work at the foundation, and Michelle's going to talk about that now.
Thank you, Dan. And thank you, SCORE, for the opportunity to share some of the amazing work that we are doing in Chattanooga to, as Dan spoke to increase college completion rates. So the Gateway Scholars Program was established in 2019 with the goal to help students to make a smooth transition from high school to college and then to be successful in college. That's our why, but our how is with the College Advancement Mentors, or CAMs, as we call them. They have become and are the linchpin to our strategy. So CAMs began connecting with students during their senior year to help with college going needs. So in collaboration with the college and career advisors that Dan spoke to that were established or started in 2004, they work with seniors to help them complete the college applications, to help with FAFSA, Tennessee Promise, identify and complete other scholarship applications, and all the things that go into sort of this college going process. And then as students prepare for graduation and as they graduate from high school, CAMs continue their work with students in ensuring that they complete the FAFSA verification, which can be intimidating to a lot of students, to help students to register for new student orientation programs, complete housing applications where needed, also to connect them with summer bridge opportunities and other things that surface in the summer to ensure that they're prepared to show up in August. Once school starts, CAMs continue their efforts to support students in their first 2 years of college. So that means that they meet with them individually. In some cases, they meet weekly or bi-weekly, depending on the needs of the student. They also help students as questions come up, referring students to the right departments. And we're very thankful for the partnership that we have with our local institutions here, Chattanooga State and UTC, that they have provided, particularly at Chattanooga State, provided offices for our CAMs. So the CAMs are on the campus and they're able to help walk students to these departments. So we don't just point students in the direction or tell them where to go, but the CAMs actually walk students to these particular departments. Mostly to walk them through the process, but to help them sort of navigate through these conversations that can be sometimes intimidating for students, particularly first generation college students. Through our established emergency fund, CAMs help students balance the in-school and out-of-school financial needs that often impede their progress to success. And these things range from school supplies or academic supplies, books, notebook, paper, pens, to food insecurities. And now, as we're all dealing with the increased gas prices, we've actually had students who've reached out to us with a need for gas cards so that they can get gas to get back and forth to campus. So additionally, our higher ed partners send faculty alerts that aids us in connecting with students at the onset of academic trouble so that we can intervene and connect them to tutoring, peer support as they need it. And then we also, with the partnership with our colleges, our higher ed partners, have created learning communities for our students. And at UTC, the CAMs teach the first year experience classes, and at Chattanooga State, those are led by equity-minded professors who participated in a professional development to ensure that they can hone in on their teaching strategies that optimize the success of students, again, particularly first generation college students. It's important to note that in the first year this program started, that we saw an increase in retention. Unfortunately, shortly after our program began, the pandemic started. And so, but with that, we were able to sort of mitigate the loss. So we were able to connect with students and keep them focused during a very hard time for many of them, and even for many of us, just being in online, and they were struggling with often with online learning. And so the camps were able to help them navigate through that process as well. And then even this year, which I guess we're post-pandemic, I'm not sure sometimes, but if we can consider this post-pandemic, we've seen an increase in retention as well. So the work that we're doing with the Gateway Scholars Program, particularly with CAMS, is not just an idea or not just a good idea, but we've seen the impact that it has had on our community. And so we look forward to continuing the work through the power of our mentorship component. And then lastly, Dan mentioned Camp College for Rising Seniors and the program. That program coupled with the efforts of CAMS during their senior year emphasizes the importance of helping students to identify their best fit college, and a best fit college where their students' academic, social, and financial needs are met. We know that it's critical to college success, especially again for first generation college students. So with that, I will kick it back to Dan to share one of our newest innovations, which is the app DegreeU.
As I say a few words, thanks, Michelle, about DegreeU, I did just want to make sure I underlined for other communities. So the investment of our community in these things, I think I failed to say for the college advisors, Hamilton County Schools now pays those salaries. They saw the value, they're paying for it. UTC, Chattanooga State are investing in the work of CAMS as well as local philanthropy. But there are ways for communities to take steps forward and co-create, co-invest to make these things possible. So let me say a few words about DegreeU. First of all, it's an app, right? It's on my phone. We call it DegreeU. You're going to hear about it very early in its development, but here's the big idea. The big idea of DegreeU is that it helps students identify colleges that are both a best fit and a place they are likely to graduate from. Look, most websites tell kids, put in information and it tells them whether they can get in. What DegreeU does, which is kind of flip things on its head, it's not telling them what they can get in, it's whether it's a good fit and they'll graduate with a degree. It's an app that shifts from matriculation to graduation. And to us, it's also an equity lever, right? It gives all kids access to a full list of best fit colleges that they'll get a degree from or that they're most likely. We developed an algorithm, and let me be really clear, we didn't develop an algorithm. Keith White, who's sitting outside my door, who did all the work on this, developing the algorithm, and now we've got one other person helping him with that, David Morton. They created an algorithm that combines the federal IPEDS database and PEF's database, which looks at what's happened to more than 30,000 Hamilton County students over the last 20 years. And these two databases together create an algorithm. We've created the algorithm that helps kids find a best fit college, places that meet their personal, academic, and financial needs, and are places where kids like them graduate, earn a degree. If you would put up that first slide, and maybe I can talk through a little bit. So here are two students. It's live. We could do this live, but we didn't have quite the confidence to do it live. So this is what it looks like. It's on a phone. Students answer a set of really simple questions. What high school do they attend? Some questions about, race and gender, their academic record, ACT score, more importantly, GPA, their interests, if they know them, what they want to study, their personal needs, especially how far they want to be from home, whether they want to go to an HBCU, whether they want to stay in state, and then very few questions about financial need, but a question on financial need. And they put that information in a phone. And the phone, and maybe we go to the next slide, will give them a set of best fit schools. places where students with their interests, their backgrounds, their achievements go and are likely to graduate from. And let me be clear, and maybe we can go to the next slide, because this, I think, is a really important part, right? We wanted to put this here. DegreeU is not going to replace a college advisor, an adult who helps kids find a best fit college. But it does start the conversation around what we think is really important about college advising. What's a best fit, and where am I going to graduate from? We've got DegreeU out in the hands of all of our college advisors in Hamilton County, a cross section of about 50 students, and we're developing it. And we are really excited about what it can do as helping kids find best fit that they're likely to graduate from. So David, those are the two innovations, the work of the CAMs and the community partnership around getting more students, especially the students that Tennessee has not done a good job of graduating from college, providing them real support, and then this app, which really will get them to a place that's good at graduating them. So those are our two innovations, and we're excited about them. We're really delighted to be here, and if there are questions, we'll try and answer them.
Awesome. Thanks, Dan and Michelle. So great. We got a bunch of questions that are popping in the chat box here, but I want to start with a couple questions, and I'm thinking I might start with a focus on DegreeU and then maybe zoom out more broadly to other work that PEF is doing as well. But on the DegreeU piece specifically, so there are a ton of college search tools and apps that students have access to, or that college and career counselors have access to. What is unique about DegreeU? And also wonder if you could talk a little bit more about the data component, like how does the data that you have play a role in maybe what makes the app unique?
Well, that's exactly the most important part of the answer, right? What makes it unique, first of all, is it fundamentally focuses on graduation, not whether you can get in, but whether you'll get out with a degree. It is both the iPEDS data, and those of you who have worked with the iPEDS data know how incredibly complex the data set is. So it's a combination of that, but it's also how our students, how 30 years of Hamilton County students have done at colleges. So it's a combination, it's a mixture of how so what it does is it says, look, and one of the slides we had there, a Hispanic student, female student from East Ridge, the list of colleges that come up for her are very likely schools, a few she may have heard of, and a group that she hasn't. But those are colleges that do really well with a student with her ACT score, her background, her desire to be 2 hours from Hamilton County. And so that's, I think, where it's really different. But it focuses on completion. And most of, we've tested the market a little bit. We're not selling anything, but we've looked out at what's out there. And this focus on completion for an app and completion for our kids is really what makes it different. We've been fortunate. We're trying to be very thoughtful about the creation of it so that it is sticky for kids. I mean, we all know if it's something that kids will use, students will use, we've had students help us design. The name was picked. We had a bunch of helpful experts, but students were the ones who chose the name. That's what speaks to them. So that's why I think it's different. And we're not trying to go into a market and say ours is, should clear the field, but it has real value for Hamilton County students because it's based on our students' experience, and it focuses on the biggest problem we're seeing in this field right now, which isn't, we're doing better at getting students into college. We're not doing a lot better, and I'll stop, but let me shout out what's happening at Chattanooga State and UTC, their focus on that, and especially with the students that historically haven't done as well.
All right, next question on DegreeU, Dan. So you talked a little about who is using the tool right now. What's the plan to expand that usage? Are students using it? And when do you expect that would happen? Yeah.
Yes, students are using it. It's a small cross section. We've got 50 students trying to learn what's most helpful to them. And we've got it in the hands of every single college advisor. Remember, Hamilton County saw the value of college advisors. They're now full-time employees of the district. They're all learning it, using it. We are developing professional development, both hands-on in person, as well as a set of video that will help teachers, help advisors. And so we think this spring, we're going to get to a larger group of students. And what we really want to do is have a much bigger rollout. But, we're learning all the time from it. It's an app. We're a nonprofit. This isn't the thing that we have done for many, many years. So we're learning, but it's pretty slick. David, you've seen it. It's pretty slick right now.
Awesome. Then I've got one other question, and then we have 2 or 3 questions specifically about DegreeU that I want to turn to. But last question I would have, Dan, is there other information or maybe other data that you're considering making available or connecting into the app that you think might be helpful for students in the future?
Yeah, so the holy grail, and we haven't got there yet. But David, if you want to help us, we'd be delighted. So we think a really important question is to show that students who earn a degree go into a profession where they make a living wage. There's a lot of talk out there that college just adds debt and it doesn't get you a job. We believe the data sets in Tennessee are such that you could actually show that the students from Howard High School who got a degree from UTC are now making on average this amount of money. And the students who decided not to go to college or didn't complete college are making this amount of money. So I know we all read the Georgetown data and the reports, and they're really good. But in my community, when people hear that, they go, well, that probably is true for, with Georgetown data, but what about our kids? And so we want to connect the income data. We think that's really important. We want to keep working on the list that students get that is most helpful to them. So a lot of this is real time, seeing how students interact. The college advisors and what's useful to them, those are some of the most overworked, underappreciated human beings on the face of the earth. And so we want to make sure this is really helpful to them and really helps them get conversations started well into the process, rather than, a college advisor's working with 200 kids. It's hard to have multiple deep conversations.
So one question maybe on the list of schools that populate when a student goes through the app. One question that somebody asked, Dan, was about whether TCATs are on that list.
They are.
So we'd just love to hear about what schools are on there. And then also, are there any guardrails that you put in place in terms of what schools would populate when a student goes through the app?
Yeah, we've gone through a bunch of iterations on this. I believe every school is possible. Definitely TCAT. We didn't give you a long look at it, and that's fine. The 2-year university, 2-year colleges, 4-year universities, public, private, in-state, out-of-state. Some of that, what comes up is what students want. If they don't want to be more than 2 hours from home, they're not going to get a recommendation that they look at a college in Pennsylvania. I'm not sure I answered your question there, David, but
no, absolutely. Yeah. And so bottom line is TCATs are on the list.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Great.
Absolutely. Great. Another body of work that we want to do, David, is also for students who want to transfer, right? And which we haven't done that work yet, but there is a large group of students who transfer after a couple of years. We haven't worked on that yet.
Got it. And then one other question on DegreeU specifically, and I think this is a question probably, Dan, that you expected somebody would ask, but the potential for scaling to additional communities outside of Hamilton County.
Yes, it is a question I expected. So we're, I want to recognize where we are, which is early phases. We want to make sure that this works really well for students, that it is an equity lever that helps the students who don't have parents at home who can tell them about 20 different colleges. We want to get it right before we scale it. I think there are ways to scale it. One of the things, David, you and I have had conversations over a decade about the importance of data. And I think any community that wants to start down this path really needs to start collecting data and looking carefully at it about their kids. I think what makes ours particularly valuable is that we've collected data for every student since 2004. So 18 years of data will really make this a more beneficial tool. You can use the iPad's data, which is about all kids, and that has value, but it doesn't have quite the value that ours does. But I think, it is scalable. First, we got to get it, really exactly right for students, because at the end of the day, it can be a very cool tool for adults, but we want it. There's a body of work, and how we got here was hearing from too many students that they really didn't get a substantial conversation repeated about this, and we want to help those students, and we want to get this right. But we are, we're excited about where it is.
Great, and we can make sure to share your contact information with folks who are joining us today who are interested in exploring this tool or this idea in their communities as well, and or at least having a conversation with you, Dan, about what that would look like. I want to zoom out a little bit, and Michelle, make sure to also bring you into the conversation and talk for a second about FAFSA, which we know, since the onset of the pandemic, we've seen FAFSA filing rates, college application rates, college going rates go down, especially at community colleges and especially among students of color. And would be curious to see or sort of hear about what are you seeing? What do you think is driving some of those declines? And what should we be doing to address them? And maybe what are you doing to address them?
Thanks for the question. I think there's a lot of things that has played into that. I think obviously the pandemic and students just not being comfortable with online, some students not being comfortable with online learning and thinking that is what the college experience is. So I think that is some of what has driven the low rates. But I also think that as a community, as a nation, I think we just have to do a better job of helping students understand the importance of some post-secondary education, whether it's for TCAT, whether it's for apprenticeship opportunities, so that they know that there's something good that can come after high school, and I think somebody made this point in the chat, not just sort of making the college sermon, not just preaching about college, but helping them understand there's so much is under college, and that could be a 2-year certificate or a 1-year diploma program, and so helping to do that. And then I think with that conversation and students opening students' eyes to the opportunities that are out there, I think we'll start to see some things that are done differently. And I think we'll start seeing more excitement from students about what their plans are and what their plans can be after high school.
So we have one question where this person asks whether the work at PEF connects with Gear Up work in any way. And is there a family engagement or a parent engagement component of the work that PEF is doing? I don't know, Dan or Michelle, if you would want to take that question.
Michelle, you want to start and I'll add?
Sure. So there's not an official connection with Gear Up and in terms of but a lot of our work is similar. And then we don't have an official setting or event where we bring in families, but we do meet with a lot of families because we're in the high schools. And so we're there for FAFSA nights and community events that the schools host. So that actually gives us an opportunity to connect with families during that time, which ends up working, we continue to work with students and their families as they transition to high school, but there's not an official event or activity where we're connecting with families.
And I would add, so part of the possibility with DegreeU, right, is to figure out how that is a tool that students and their parents can work. And in terms of, we do work with UTC Gear Up. Keith White, who's basically our data and research department, does their evaluation. And so there are some, it works with them very much to see how they evaluate and the tools that they use. But that's an area I think, frankly, we're all working to be as strong as possible, because we know how important families are to students' decisions. That's an important area.
All right, we're going to go to two final questions from guests, and then I'm gonna use moderator's prerogative here and ask the final question. But just got a question about really from the data perspective. Are there any FERPA implications associated with the data that is in the app, or some of the other programs that you're talking about? And how do you think about making sure that protecting student data is obviously a really important priority? What does that look like for you all?
It's a huge priority. Keith White is, some of you are asking questions in the chat, and Keith White is, I'm certainly not answering them, but we are incredibly careful with what we do with the relationship. We don't have direct access to most of the information. It is filtered and de-identified. So the FERPA information is really important to protect. Keith can be more precise, but that's something that we have been working on for 15 or 20 years to make sure that we are on the right side of that.
And I'll add to that, specifically with the CAMs. They do go through FERPA training at each of our higher ed partners. The training that they give to their employees. So we do go through that. And then there's an understanding that none of the information about students' information or data is to be shared. So we just kind of keep that in-house, but because of the partnership and the collaboration, we do discuss with our higher ed partners what's going on so that we can make sure that students are successful, but they do have training.
Great. All right, last question from someone joining us this morning. How do you balance talks or conversation about college graduation with the broader set of conversations that I feel like we have in society today about whether a college degree is worth it or not? And sort of, are those conversations that the advisors are having with students? How do you all think about that just broadly in the work?
Well, that does come up often, probably more often than we want it to. And really, we try to focus the conversation on what it is the student wants to do, and then help them sort of understand the road or roads that they need to take to get there. And so for some students, that does require some post-secondary education. And for other students, it may not. We actually just had a student, and these are the conversations that I like to have with students, who is interested in being a model. So we talked to him about what he needs to do that. So I took a look at his social media and said, well, if this is something that you want to do and you're really interested in getting into this field, you're going to need to change your social media to use that platform. We talked about a portfolio. So we really kind of focused the conversation on what it is students want to do, and then help them figure out the right path to get there. And that path is going to be different for every student.
And any final thoughts on this question?
I think Michelle nailed it.
Great. All right. So we're going to turn to our last question. So we've asked every guest who has joined us on these Friday sessions the same final question. And really, it's in the spirit of trying to look ahead and think about how education should or could look different in a way that is better for students. And so I would love to hear Michelle and Dan, your thoughts on this question. If we were to look back perhaps 20 years from now, what do you predict or hope will be the biggest or most important change in education? It could be in K-12 or post-secondary, but what do you hope for over the next 20 years? Or what do you think is on the way in the work that we're all trying to do together?
All right, David, we knew this question was coming. Michelle and I flipped a coin. I lost, so I have to go first. She gets the last word. I think one of the things we've been really impressed with, your first guest was J.D. Hickey from Blue Cross Blue Shield of Tennessee. And we've been very involved with Blue Cross, helping to recruit students for the Blue Sky Institute, and watched how ETSU and Blue Cross have co-constructed a really interesting 2.5-year degree program that really recruits students around their passions and their interests and provides them with something that's really articulated from increasingly from high school with a university and a employer who are working together to co-construct what students learn and guarantee a really good job that they aren't obligated to take. They have the opportunity to be hired at Blue Cross at $60,000 a year after 2.5 years, but they can go work for Google or anybody else if they want to. And I think sort of this weaving together, thoughtful, intentional weaving together of high school, higher ed, and corporate for students. As a former English major, I guess I'm never a former English major. As an English major, I don't think it was part of my experience to think about where this was all leading. And I think there are ways that can be really helpful to students.
All right, Michelle, you get the last word.
Oh, thanks, Dan. I get the last word. So I echo what Dan said. I think this bringing together of college experience and career, but I also think too, I think the pandemic gave colleges an opportunity, maybe forced them to think about offering college in a different platform. So I think that we may see a rise in online classes or online degree programs, just alternatives to what a college experience looks like. Blue Sky is definitely an option. I think WGU has provided that opportunity for students across the nation. But also, and someone alluded to this in the chat, I think sort of backing this, what do we do after high school conversation up to middle school students, and not just waiting until students get in high school, but to start having some of these conversations earlier so that students can begin to think about it in a different way, and to think about it earlier and to think about it in a different way.
Awesome. All right. So we said we're going to keep these sessions only 45 minutes. Want to respect everyone's busy Friday morning. But thank you so much, Dan and Michelle, for being with us, for sharing the exciting work you're doing. Really looking forward to staying updated with what I know will be lots of exciting project updates and new initiatives coming soon from PEF. But just want to say before we close, invite folks who've joined us today to join us for our next session. We'll be announcing the date and our special guests very soon. And we'll say, look for the link to this morning's session, which we'll be sending out after the session later today, as well as all of our other past sessions that you'll see over email and that are also available on our YouTube page. So thank you all again for joining us. Thanks, Dan and Michelle, for being with us today. Hope you'll have a great day, great weekend, and look forward to seeing you again soon.